this autosave system, which, unlike the Far Cry 2 safe houses, just puts you a minute or two back if you happen to mess up. And about that sandbox, there's quite a lot of things to play around with. I wouldn't really say that the weapon option is better than what Far Cry 2 had, but because
toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
Restocks and resources, you oftentimes just ended up using the same weapons in Far Cry 2. No one is going to pick up an enemy weapon knowing it's probably going to jam every other magazine, nor would you be very inclined to try something new over the safer option when dying potentially means losing a lot of progress. So not only does Far Cry 3 suddenly allow for all of those more niche weapons,
toy cows in Africa, toy cows, toy cows in Africa, toy cows,
like the
moo,
toy
cows,
to allow animals to get involved in fights, and even the addition of more human-type enemies, such as, for example, the heavies. I will not lie and say that everything about the sandbox is perfect or as polished as it could have been, with the enemy AI still being quite special at times. But because you're likely to mow through a lot more enemies, the lacking AI isn't as much on the forefront. Something that also cannot be understated is how much the performance of some of the actors helped lift the package as a whole. It's really no secret that the story of Far Cry 3 by itself is pretty mediocre at best, with plenty of plot.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows, toy cows in Africa, toy cows, toy cows, the toy cows,
yeah. Machina moments that just don't make any sense and push the plot forward in a very strange way, and let alone the dialogue between Jason, the main character, and some of his friends. But it's within the performance of villains like Bass and Point that you can look the other way about all of the shortcomings and still somewhat feel connected to the story. Honestly, if you think of Far Cry 3, you probably think of these two characters. And of course, the game cutscenes help a lot with this delivery, and gives even lesser developed characters a proper, although be more brief moment in the spotlight. No
there were toy cows in Africa,
the delivery of it is miles above any moment that Far Cry 2 provided, where characters just herded out a bunch of lines like they were freestyling and rap gods, and you're just standing there waiting to receive your payment.
Put the motivator in there and make it no.
We need to abort.
We are not done. Help me.
Damien, it's over.
Maurice. Yeah.
You're on. One of our targets ran a search for the hackers in the lockjaw. You're assigned Aiden Pierce. Take him out. Hit the family if you need to. This guy's testing days are done.
Hit the family?
Got a problem?
Nope. I'm scared. I'm good. You'll never hear from him again.
I did not understand any of that.
I've got a good feeling about this. How about we play right now for...
Turtle, I thought that we were friends. We're better friends, Enrique. Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. We got them all. Toy cows in Africa, toy.
You got me over there. Who gave the order?
You don't know.
Ain't the family not a problem? Nope. I'm scared. I'm good. You'll never hear from me again.
What do you think, Maurice?
Stop! I didn't know!
Who was on the other end of the call? Give me a name.
They never gave me a name! I didn't know how to influence the way that was supposed to happen.
I want you to think very carefully. Think.
Look, man. Even if I knew a name, it couldn't get me talking. These guys. I heard stories, man, like nothing you ever seen before. I want to walk away from this, man. Please!
Too many toy cows in Africa. Toy cow.
I spoke to my phone and told me where to find you.
You're a liar. You're a bad hombre.
A name! Tell me, man. Fucking kill me.
How's your memory now?
Ooh, combo breaker. Talk about toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
Maurice talked to me, but I bet he talked to you.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
I need to keep moving.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Ooh, yeah! Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Toy cows! Ooh, ooh, ooh. We got some toy cows.
Dunya engine.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Toy cows! Ooh, ooh, ooh. We got some
Far Cry 2
toy cows in
released
Africa,
October
toy
2008
cows.
and came out as an open world game as opposed to a game with a more linear story structure. Turning to the open world genre,
Toy
was
cows in
started by
Africa,
Ubisoft
toy
as the
cows.
GTA franchise had heavily popularized it, and everybody was on the lookout for that next game where you're allowed to do whatever, whenever. And Far Cry 2 is wherever, also the game started there. Set in the lands of Africa, you play as a mercenary who is tasked to kill a man named the Jackal, who has been supplying weapons to both sides of an ongoing civil war. Now nowadays, if you hear Ubisoft open world game, you probably know what to expect, at least for a good part, because they're well known for copy and pasting many existing mechanics from one game to the other. But back in 2008, this really was not the case. Ubisoft was
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
and so a lot of the stuff that you'll see in Far Cry 2 is very different from your typical open world game that you see today. And that's for the better or for the worse.
Hey, are you okay? You don't look so cool. I'm tired.
Far Cry 2 was essentially the second open world game that Ubisoft
Toy cows in Africa.
only preceded by the original Assassin's Creed. And again, maybe more if you want to count that. So while the Dunya engine provided players with
For 2 minutes. Give me my bullets. I tossed them. What? You said you'd kill him otherwise. I told you to hold on to them, Jordy. Where you been, anyway?
I had to make a call. And you get what you need from Maurice?
Oh, you're kidding me. Clean this mess up. Stop admiring my work. Hey, that's cute and all, but I'm disappointed. I mean, you failed to spot the nasty inter-gang drama. I don't like the sense. Let's get him out of here. No, too late. Bottom of the eighth. Chicago's ahead. Game's almost over. We are out of time. Nice shot. Huh. Come on. Interested in the phone call. All right, fine. Tell me about your phone call. Glad you asked. Okay, we got a bunch of dead bodies, right? We got 40,000 people above us. We need a distraction. I called the cops. You did? Oh, yeah, true story. So, cops are out, and Maurice's band of brothers are out. Jordy, tell me you're joking. No, I called them too. Look, we got a messy altercation at the end of the game. You and I slip away undetected. They'll appreciate the plan tomorrow. Great. Punctual cops. Handle these guys. You grab Maurice, get him out of here. Maurice? What do I look like, a chauffeur? He's the shooter. I'm not through with him yet. Dick.
Chicago police! If there's anybody in here, identify yourselves.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Ooh, yeah.
I got another corpse. Another viceroy. How'd they have the biggest game of the season for this shit? Trying to ruin Brooklyn? Squad, we got two bodies in the basement of Bay Stadium. Gangbangers.
Copy. We're setting parameters. Secure your position for now.
All right. Doesn't look right. Why? See anything? Nope. Quiet here. You've got a known VIP now. I'm gonna check him out. Okay, I'm coming up. Slow down. He's down there. Make sure we don't get any surprises. All right.
He's not moving unless I give him a reason.
Joy.
Take the bait.
Miss Allegoing out. Toy cows in Africa, toy cow.
Hey, you, sir.
Yeah, you
Yes,
here.
man. You got no problem, cause
We're just talking. Look, I got my tickets right. No, keep your hands where Get back now. You're vice aren't you? Don't get smart. How did you two afford VIP?
Bet you make more than you do.
Yeah?
Hey, yo, calm down, all right? Don't get to nothing in shoes.
Something tells me if we run your shoes through the system, we'll come up with money. I need to see ID. Both of you.
Why ain't showing shit? What?
Fine. I don't need ID. I'd ask you to smile, but it looks better if you don't.
Hey, man. I did not get permission to take my picture.
Go. Jerome Richards. Looks like we got a trafficking warrant out on you.
On the new hardware of the next generation of consoles, it is the gameplay that really is a mixed bag, which has resulted in Far Cry 2 being the most divisive game in the franchise even to this day. It's often loved by many players for the amount of effort it takes to keep the players immersed into the game world in ways like having the map be an actual world map that you physically pull out of your pocket, or by never taking you out of the first person mode.
But it's hard to terminate. But I didn't regret the way they planned, and I'm still breathing in your malaria.
Just as often, though, the game is also disliked for the repetitive nature of all of its missions, and for many of the gameplay gimmicks that just seem to get in the way of the fun. Because the game is so dead set on immersion, fast travel is very, very limited. It's only possible through one of the 5 bus stops which are located on the outer edge of the map. And because of this, at least 50% of your gameplay will be just driving around trying to get from one destination to the other. Of course, the tolerance that players might have for this varies wildly as far as the audience is really looking for its immersive sim. But I think where it gets especially confused is when around the whole it is revealed to the player that there is a second method with long more rigors and mountains that make getting from one place to another anything but a straight line. The long traveling times are compounded by the fact that the map is littered and the outposts and random convoys patrolling around is always shoot you on sight, and even chase you pretty much around the whole map, trying to shoot your vehicle down. No, I'm just trying to get to the mission. Fine. Where are you? Fine. Boats, no. Okay. I guess they're not coming.
Take my picture.
Great weapon! Oh my god, dude. But just die already.
You do have that one.
Ooh.
Fuck you.
More? Where are they even?
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Oh no!
Okay. Now, we can just prepare the car real quick again. And then we are good to go. Just of course, in the later hardlines, you can play out its outposts, which can alleviate some of this pressure and clear out some of the enemies in the area. But in Far Cry 2, the moment you leave an outpost after you clear it out, the enemies just respawn, and there is no way to get rid of them a bit more permanently. This means that oftentimes during missions, you just want to get from point A to point B to do the actual missions, but on the way getting there, you'll be drained.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Oh no!
Yeah, healing
Oh no,
and everything else is
Talk
very
about
limited.
toy cows.
The weapons even degrading at the same time, causing them to lose accuracy, causing them to jam, and even causing them to just drain and make fighting harder. Of course, you can always pick up enemy weapons, but you'll learn very fast that the weapons that the enemies have are always in the forest of the Ubisoft Montreal only delivered on their vision for some of the hardcore and all-focused games set in Africa, but they seem to have little concerns about how fun that will actually be.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
Depends depends on the type of player that you are, and even in what kind of mood you're in. What is perhaps the biggest flaw though is that the whole main storyline revolves around fighting for one side or the other. You pick a side of the Civil War to get more information on where the Jackal is.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows!
They will always tell you something along the lines of, hey, this mission is secret, so even people from our side will still shoot you on sight.
Don't forget, this is secret mission, so you fellow guys don't expect any help out there.
Nobody else in APR knows about this. Others always go get ready. Keep your head down.
Nobody knows about this stuff here. You and that guys are the future inside.
Whoa! Toy cows in Africa, toy cows, toy cows, toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the outcome will always stay the same no matter what you do. Much like you cannot take over the outposts and throw them permanently, nothing you do has an actual impact on the game.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Toy cows in Africa, toy cows. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Talking about toy cows.
And there are plenty of war zones where, unless you fire your gun first, enemies will not shoot you either. And with the fact that none of your decisions matter and none of the outposts are permanently cleared, it ultimately makes most of the players not care for the outcome either way, and they will usually just resort to whatever decision.
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
Joe was a man, he'll screw you over just like he screwed us. Think about it. It takes one phone call. I can make this happen. I can fix it with the guards.
You know, you do make a good point, but the thing is, you're over here, and the other guy is all the way over there. So, another thing that really doesn't work with the game is that it has a lot of really unnecessary gameplay features that just get in the way. One that is, of course, often mentioned is that the player has malaria, which requires you to do some fetch quests in order to get more pills to survive. There's a lot of ways in where it doesn't really work. People don't like that you have to take pills mid-combat at random, and also the extra trips back and forth really prevent you from just following the main storyline. But the part that I just found inexcusable is where if you actually keep track of your pills and try to manage it like a resource, the game just outright spams you and takes away your pills just to halt your progress because you're going to...
Toy cows in Africa, toy cows.
2 or 3 of these quests in a row without needing to take any pills in the meantime, which would amount to about 6 to 9 pills, because I think you get 2 or 3 each. But then, the very first time I actually needed to take a pill, I took one and then it showed me that the tent was empty. So I had to go do another fetch quest. Despite a couple of those design choices though, the game has actually improved a lot compared to Far Cry 1. Or the Far Cry Instance games for that matter. AI still have the occasional problems with birds not really going where the NPCs are aiming, or with enemies outright shooting you through walls. But overall, the stealth works a lot better and it's more fair. When it's night or when it's foggy, you can actually sneak up on enemies, but the enemies are also not blind to the point where you can just run at them and they still spot you. And yeah, this is an open world game, and it does feature a fully dynamic game cycle. Something that it also proudly shows off every time you decide to put your fantasy in the game. Something that also cannot really go unnoticed is that with Far Cry 2, the multiplayer really started popping up in group style. This is for a big part because of our map editor, which is by large and far the best map editor that any console game has had up until that time. Far Cry 1 also had a map editor, and even Far Cry Instance had one, but the one in Far Cry 2 was far more easy to use and very, very advanced. Not like those searches for like 4K which really started to become I was actually able to dig up some of the Far Cry 2 maps that I had saved in my 360 copy of the game, and I found some classics such as a Jurassic Park remake or War on SpongeBob. Although it doesn't really look like SpongeBob from down here, the open worlds, the multiplayer pools, the map editor, and the fact that Far Cry 2 released for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation meant that despite some of the design flaws and its controversial reception, it still sold almost 3 million copies during its release quarter. This rise in popularity resulted in pre-production for the next Far Cry game pretty much starting right away. And even though no time was wasted, the full development cycle for what would become Far Cry 3 still took a total of 4 years, which was the longest development cycle for any Far Cry game up until that point, and even to this day. This long development cycle was in part because the idea of what Far Cry 2 should become changed a couple times during the development, as the staff at Ubisoft Montreal switched from production. But it's also because with Far Cry 3, the developers very carefully collected and considered all the feedback that was there with Far Cry 2. I'm sure many of you watching this must already know that Far Cry 3 became a mass hit as a result of that. We really put the franchise into the eyes of the mainstream audience. So I think now it's time to take a good look at what made Far Cry 3 so special. Apart from the obvious, of course. In many ways, you'll find that Far Cry 3 is a direct response to many of the shortcomings that Far Cry 2 had. Dislike the bleak color palette in Far Cry 2? Well, let's fix that by making everything such a bright green color that it borders on being cartoonish. Dislike the respawning control points? Well, here's control points, or we'll call them outposts now, that will permanently stay captured and also rid the surrounding area of any enemies once you capture them. Sprinting or driving around the map too tedious, you say? Okay, well, here's unlimited sprint right from the get-go, and an abundance of fast travel points that you can actually fast travel to whenever you want. Bonus points for putting a lot of those fast travel points right next to the mission areas. And in the case of the second island, even to areas you have never visited before. It's too difficult to see enemies mid-combat sometimes? Okay, well, we already fixed the colors in the game. Now let's just give the enemies bright red shirts and introduce a tagging system that will let you permanently track them once you've spotted them, even through walls. Yeah, that one was maybe a little bit too much. By far and wide, the biggest improvement that Far Cry 3 has made is that it takes a lot more effort to create exciting main missions. Actual main missions. Not some side mission disguised as a main mission where you have to drive halfway across the map just to kill one guy only to drive all the way back. Far Cry 3 has a story with interesting and memorable characters and a good amount of missions that send you to places that are otherwise not accessible, only to present you with big set-piece moments. One mission you could be running into everybody's favorite psychopath.
Listen to me. Boss, who the fuck is it going to be? Them or me? Me or them?
While the next mission sends you off exploring some ancient caves in search for some sort of knife. Or you simply jump out of a plane with a wingsuit. Or you get to use the flamethrower to set fire to a wheat plantation while blasting Skrillex in the background. The open world also received a much-needed facelift. If you wanted to do anything in Far Cry 2 that was not a main mission, you would be destroying a convoy, or taking out a high-value target, or getting more malaria pills.
Deliver these transit letters and you'll be assured your medicine.
And that got stale pretty fast, and really only results in the player having more diamonds than he knows what to do with, since anything that you would be spending diamonds on is unlocked by doing these side missions. In Far Cry 3 though, well, the side missions have a bit more spice and variation. Watchtowers aside, of course, you have races for supplies, animal hunting, you have a bunch of side quests with dedicated dialogue, and even the ordinary takedown missions have a twist to them where it asks the player to take out the targets in a certain way. None of those side missions are that notable or special, but it's a big difference from Far Cry 2. And most importantly, all of this content is tied together with a sandbox that encourages you to jump into fights, rather than punishing you for simply existing. Killing enemies gives XP, loot, money, and often refills your ammo, instead of leaving you with less than you had before the fight. It also has a very generous autosave system, which, unlike the Far Cry 2 safe houses, just puts you a minute or two back if you happen to mess up. And about that sandbox, there's quite a lot of toys to play around with. I wouldn't really say that the weapon arsenal is larger or better than what Far Cry 2 had, but because of weapon degradation and limited resources, you oftentimes just ended up using the same weapons in Far Cry 2. No one is going to pick up an enemy weapon knowing it's probably going to jam every other magazine, nor would you be very inclined to try something new over the the safer option when dying potentially means losing a lot of progress. So not only does Far Cry 3 suddenly allow for all of those more niche weapons to be valid options, it also added a whole bunch of new stuff on top of that, like the brutal stealth takedowns, or the ability for wild animals to get involved in fights, and even the addition of more human-type enemies, such as, for example, the heavies. I will not lie and say that everything about the sandbox is perfect or as polished as it could have been, with the enemy AI still being quite special at times. But because you're likely to mow through a lot more enemies a lot faster, the lacking AI isn't as much on the forefront.
Come out and face me! Pick it, motherfucker!
Something that also cannot be understated is how much the performance of some of the actors helped lift the package as a whole. It's really no secret that the story of Far Cry 3 by itself is pretty mediocre at best, with plenty of plot holes like the player having to wait for a specific boat to be fixed, while also coming across a million very useful boats throughout the whole playthrough, and a bunch of Deus Ex Machina moments that just don't make any sense and push the plot forward in a very strange way, and let alone the dialogue between Jason, the main character, and some of his friends. But it's within the performance of villains like Vaas and Floyd that you can look the other way about all of the shortcomings and still somewhat feel connected to the story.
You're very unarmed! But I hate Jason Brody!
Honestly, if you think of Far Cry 3, you probably think of these two characters. And of course, the game cutscenes help a lot with this delivery, and gives even lesser developed characters a proper, although be it more brief, moment in the spotlight. No matter how bad the dialogue can be at times, the delivery of it is miles above any moment that Far Cry 2 provided, where characters just spurted out a bunch of lines like they were freestyling on Rap God, and you're just standing there waiting to receive your payment.
It's a moving target. You'll have to pick a spot on the road and wait for him to come to you.
That little goodness will be in a great big SUV.
Put the motorcade and kill the cop and make it messy. We need you to send a message.
I did not understand any of that.
I've got a good feeling about this. How about we pay you right now for the work?
The only thing that really hurt the presentation of Far Cry 3 is honestly just the UI. We really went from going the extra mile to minimize the HUD as much as possible to a clunky and overly messy menu that takes far too long to open and go through. Sure, more features were added to Far Cry 3, such as crafting, which often required these type of menus to be somewhere in the game. It's just that this UI is so bulky now with all of its additions, and it's just one of those moments where you really won't appreciate the clean look of Far Cry 2 unless you've learned about Far Cry 3. I think this is really one of those rare cases where that complete 180 of direction wasn't needed at all. And staying on the topic of the clean look for a bit, it's also very noticeable that Ubisoft Montreal is in a constant fight against the current console generation nearing the end of its life cycle. The PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will not be released until late 2015. That is still a year after the release of Far Cry 3, which meant that it was stuck with just the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, both being about 6 or 7 years old at that time. Far Cry 3 was still developed using the powerful Dunya engine, and it would have been able to release cutting-edge visuals similar to what Crysis 3 offered around the same time, but instead, many cutbacks and compromises had to be made in order to get this game working on the console. There's these weird 2D shadows and ambient occlusion behind every object to try and create some separation, but it doesn't really work a lot of the times and just creates this weird inverse halo effect with a line of pixels in between the character and the shadow that still lets through light. You have these beautiful jungle areas on the ground, but you have a horrible popping mess once you get into the sky. And there's this strange blocky mosaic fade effect that makes everything look blurry almost all the time. There's a bunch of ambient light everywhere, even in places where the area should really be darker, and there's a lot of visual artifacts the moment that you introduce translucent surfaces or reflections. And no, the game did not run at a stable 30 frames per second either. You can take a look back at the Digital Foundry analysis from around the time that it released, and it shows frame rates as low as 15 on the consoles. And even the PC port today takes a dump the moment you try to allocate it more CPU cores than the few the game was designed to run on.
I need to find my younger brother and 4 other points.
Where this would have been enough of a reason for many people to outright disregard the game in today's environment,